On this episode of Street Rat Garage, it's time for part 3 of the Volkswagen camper build. It's time to sand and buff. So what we're going to do today is put a little shine on this turd. As you can see, it's awful, and it has been primered and graffitied and rusted and all of that good stuff. Normally I would just go ahead and hit it with a buffer and shine the existing paint, but the existing paint is underneath of what I believe is sandable primer right here, which is a little bit on the thick side in some spots, not so much here obviously. It's faded in the corners, but it also has some, I guess, graffiti marks on it. Somebody just spray painting some stuff here and there, I don't know why, but we need to get down to the original paint. Somebody was doing body work on theirs there, so there's some body filler all in here, and there's sand marks, there's rust. So we don't have to be too careful about sanding this down. I'm pretty much just going to put like 220 on the sander and sand it down as good as I can, and then maybe come back and wet sand it and polish it. So it's not going to look great, but it's definitely going to look a lot better than this, that's for sure. So this is my Harbor Freight buffer that I went and got a 240 grit disc for. That's sort of just Velcro's on the back of that, and it's not a dual action, it's just a regular sander, polisher, buffer, whatever you want to call it. And we're just gonna rough this up and thin out the top layer here as best we can. We're going to probably scrape into the original paint, but it's no big deal because the original paint has already been scraped up and body filled, so we're not that worried about it. If you were going to do this right, you just come up here and just keep wet sanding it until you got through to the original paint, and didn't do any damage to the original. But this paint is pretty awful underneath, but it's even worse on top, so we don't have to be careful at all. We're just going to get in there and just start sanding on it. This is also Harbor Freight. Okay, I still have some high spots here of primer buildup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this disc on a abrasive disc on a drill here and just kind of sand those down a little bit before we get the wet sanding. Now it's time to do a little wet sanding. Well, the sanding's done, the grinding's done, wiped it all off, and the next step is to hit it with the old buffer. This is the heaviest cut compound that they have. It's McGuire's. It's all the way up there at a 12 for whatever that means. But this is the heaviest grit that you can buy. So since I didn't use any finer sandpaper and wet sanding it, we're gonna need this to knock it down to an even smoother surface. So let's go ahead and toss some of this on and see if we can get that shine out of there. All right. Oh yeah, this is a brand new bottle, so probably best if we take the lid off. And it appears to have a slight blue tint, which is unusual because it usually just has a clear white tint. Actually, I guess clear white wouldn't be a tint. It would have no tint and it would be clear white. So run a couple lines of that. Use it very liberally because yeah, we're going to need as much as we can get. We might have to go over this a couple times to get that shine to start to come out. There we go. That's one real quick pass, and you can already see that it's making quite the difference. So a couple more of these passes. I'm going to cool it down with some water because the temperature of the metal is getting quite hot. It's best to have this as cool as possible. Not best to do on a nice, bright, shiny, hot day like today. But we'll cool it off a little bit and we'll get back to buffing. All right, let's cool it back off again. Without time lapse because it's just that hot out here now.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution! Oh yeah, we want retribution! Yeah, we ran out of patience. Boil up with the cold hard hatred. I can feel the vibration. Feet in the streets, it's a new sensation. I wanna break faces on the pavement. I wanna make greatness look complacent. Adrenaline awakened.
I would say that turned out pretty well, if I do say so myself, and I did. The only thing I don't like is the back portion right here is a little bit rough. I had to use that abrasive wheel a lot back in this area, so I think one more good wet sanding and that'll be a little bit smoother. This area right out here turned out really good. That is nice and glassy. So the front door, it turned out fairly well. I like this area right here, the patina in this area. I mean, it has some old body work and filler there that, well, it's just shiny Bondo. Around the door handle needs a little bit more work, but all in all, I would say that is a success. Okay, so it's the next day, and I'm just going to go over what we have left to do on the camper. Got the exterior done pretty well. There's a few things that I need to wrap up, such as the A pillar, the B pillar, and the C pillar, and the D pillar, if that's a thing. And I need to get on this top and re-power wash it. A few other things we have to do to wrap up the body, but I mean, this is basically it. It's clean, it's shiny for the most part, and it's looking like 1,000% better than it did when we pulled it in here, that's for sure. Leave these brakes. It's going down to the floor, but if I pump it a little bit, it actually has some pressure, and it's holding there pretty good. So that's a good thing. All that we'd have to do is get a little bit of air out of the lines. I mean, it had a busted brake line, so I went and put in a quick patch there. Probably not the correct thing to do. Should have just ran a new line, but for now it's a good hold. Just use the brass fittings there. The only other thing I'm concerned about mechanically, really, is all play right there, and you can hear that noise. So we need to sort that out, figure what the deal is going, what's going on with that deal. But yeah, that's one of the on down the road things. We're good there. I can't think of anything else right now up here besides, you know, later we need to fix up this door panel. That one's over there is in pretty good shape, and floor mats are good. The shifts pretty good now. Sorted that out a bit. Well, let's see what else we have. So what we'll be doing in part number 4 is some engine work. We need to get this thing to where it'll idle, and we got to get rid of that oil leak that we had in what, part 1 was it, or was it part 2? I don't know. Anyway, we have a bad oil leak, so unfortunately the only way to get rid of that oil leak is to pull the engine out. I mean, it's just one tiny seal that's going to cause all that work, but it has to be done. And we also need to get on replacing this carburetor, because I've tried to adjust it. It's a Bocar carburetor. It's not the Solex carburetor. Solex is definitely a superior carburetor in my opinion, and I'm not replacing it with that superior carburetor. I just went and got the old Chinese no-namer here, which nobody likes, but with what I've been learning about carburetors over the past few years, I think I can get it dialed in to work probably as good as a Solex, maybe ish, but we're gonna try it. I got new lenses, and I got these manifold gasket seals for the dual port runner tube that goes into the engine. That goes right back there. See, I tried to silicone that up because they're rotted, dry rotted pretty good, just to see if it'd make it run a little bit better. But the carburetor's so bad that it's not going to do it. I put one of the taillight lenses in, and you can see how much better it makes the appearance of the back look. Definitely a lot nicer than what it was before. I had a big dent right here. This was all just sort of caved in, so I got back in there with the old rubber mallet, beat that out. That metal is really thin right there, so it's real easy to get this back into shape. So we got to stick that tail light lens in. We'll probably do that on the next episode, but the most important thing is pulling this engine out, getting that oil leak fixed, getting that carburetor on, maybe cleaning it up a little bit in there and making that look good. I was fooling around on the inside of this thing, and I did wind up creating some more work for myself. As you can see, the cushions are no longer there, and there's more debris on the floor, which we had already cleaned that up once. But if we look here, this is the back. Let's see, this is the seat right here. If we look at this guy right here, we can see that this board is completely rotted out, and the corners of the back were rotted out. I mean, there's just a lot of cheap wood that went into the construction of these seats. These hinges were stuck, and that's kind of what helped rip the back end of these boards off. That one was pretty decent, but this one was stuck pretty good. It's still a little bit stiff, but got in there and PB blasted it up, and now it's working fine. So we're just gonna have to get some, we're just gonna have to build this whole thing. I mean, the cushions aren't any good, the material's not good, and the board's not good. So we pretty much don't have anything that's good. And while we're in here, we're gonna have to take these sideboards out, put something there, patch up that hole, clean up this mess. There's another hole there, so we got a little bit of work ahead of ourselves. Like every time we get something fixed, we get 2 or 3 more problems that we need to address. We still need to patch this hole up here, a little bit there. We're just going to cut some metal from some old stock I have and just put it in there. Cut out, lay a piece in there, sheet metal screw it down, and be done with it. Then come and put maybe some particle board back on here, because that appears what it had underneath of there to begin with. So we'll lay down a base, put some carpet down, build the seats, maybe put something here, I don't know. There really needs to be a sink there. That'd be nice to have, but we're not going to go into too much expense. We're already going to be over budget on this, just because of the wood. Wood nowadays is a little pricey, but I might have something in mind for that. You'll have to stay tuned for the next episode. I think we're going to recycle, and I have a few things that might go well in this from another project vehicle that we have lying around. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Street Rat Garage Volkswagen Edition. Stay tuned for part number 4, and we'll get back on it. Until next time.